So, today we're going to talk about Wildfire Days by Kelly Ramsey, which I just finished yesterday, and it was so good. I could not put it down. I didn't want to work, I didn't want to do anything. I really just wanted to read this book. This book, a woman hotshot crew in the burning American West. So, if you were like me, you live in the Northwest. You live in the Pacific Northwest specifically. And wildfires are pretty much normal for you. They're normal for me. I don't like them. Nobody does, for that matter. But this book, I'm very, very interested in wildfire science. Very interested in it. And all the reasons how we now have megafires and whatnot. But that's a different story. This is essentially, I want to call it like an ecological memoir. It's part memoir of her life, what her past was like, her upbringing, how it shaped who she is today. This was It starts off right at the pandemic 2020, big fires and whatnot, quarantine, blah, blah, blah. And her journey to becoming a hotshot. She worked in forestry and she decided she really wanted to learn to be a hotshot. She applied for a rough and tumble crew. So she is part of the Rowdy River Hotshot crew. And she was one of 20 her first year there, her first rookie year. You're a rookie for the first 3 years. And the person she was dating was also a firefighter. He wasn't a hotshot, but he was a firefighter. So they were doing very much the same thing. But she had to travel to be part of this hotshot crew and was essentially gone for months on end. She would have R&R days where she'd have to come back, but he's off fighting firefighters. They weren't seeing each other. It was causing friction in the relationship and how she got to that point. I really love her flashbacks to growing up and being a young 20 something in college and being a self professed, for lack of, well, she called herself a slut, or she had slutty tendencies rather. Which, fine, alright, go for it. But how it all came back to her kind of absent alcoholic father, and she ended up just falling into these shitty relationships, trying to fill that void, and how the person she's with currently actually is kind of the same. He just really wasn't there for her. So she felt so dedicated and so in love with being a hotshot that he didn't want her to do it anymore. And that was button heads, as you can imagine. Getting a little bit ahead of myself. This starts off in the pandemic, her first year. So there's a bunch of extra protocols that they have to do. They got a COVID test. They got to quarantine if there's an outbreak or a suspected outbreak. And the different crew members who were absolute pains in the ass in her own way. How hard she tried to prove herself. I mean, this is grueling. You're out there for 14, 16-hour days, 24-hour shifts. You're barely eating anything. She talks about how they would go to these meeting places and there would be volunteers with food and stuff, but it was just like, here, have an Uncrustable. And they're like, I don't want this. I want something with actual, like, substance to it. Don't give me a child's food. I need protein. I need more. The absolute silly shenanigans that everybody at camp dealt with, picking on each other, like absolute horseplay, just ragging on each other like no other, and how hard she was working to prove that not only that she belonged there, but that she could fit in with them too, become one of the guys. And when she finally reached that point, it's like she made it. She really made it. Proved herself. And they kind of became like her brothers, and they were looking out for her and everything, which is really cool. Really cool. Especially being the only woman, but also how hard it was to be the only woman because of womanly things. And how just, these are, she was saying, like 6'4" men out there that are carrying 100 pounds, and she was shorter and tracking 90 pounds worth of gear up a mountain and just busting her ass. And you don't shower for 2 weeks, which sounds absolutely disgusting. Damn power to her. It was an adventure and emotional. And she goes into some of the fire science of it too, which is really cool for anybody who is not aware of maybe indigenous practices with fire management. Um, that you have hot shots, you get different types of fire crews. There's a bunch of them. I should have made notes, but I didn't. You have fire jumpers. Those dudes got balls of steel. Person that she actually ends up with towards the end of the book was a jumper. Just pretty cool. And so the first half of the book, a little more the first half, is really about her first year and all the trials, blood, sweat, and tears, literally, that happens. The risks, not just to fire, not just, oh, we're going to get trapped by the fire or anything like that. The risk of felling trees and how, I mean, that'll obviously, it's going to kill you. A tree falls on you. And how one crew member got struck in the head and they were all freaking out. I thought he broke his neck and things, and thankfully he turned out fine. And then a few weeks later, one of the other crew members, a big tree comes, falls, and however it happened, it missed his head by like that much, and he just got crushed by some of the branches. But they're all freaking out, yelling, trying to run for him, and he just kind of pops up and is like, I'm good. I'm good. A little scratch, but I'm good. And how that really brought them all together. She said it was moments like that where these really hard-ass men broke down. They broke down, and she said it was them showing emotion and not just being hard asses, and that they could, I don't know how to say it, for lack of better words, feel. um, oh my god, it was really, really good. I can't tell. It's informative in a way that if you don't live in the Northwest, you've never seen a fire up close. I have photos of fires that popped up when I was living in Spokane, Washington. Some that popped up around town. There was actually some pretty big ones that popped up outside of town and absolutely decimated communities. It was horrifying. The smoke was so thick. There was a smaller fire. I think it was only about 300 acres. I call it small. It popped up just a few miles south of me. And I was sitting on my porch working, and ash was falling on my laptop. And I was like, weird. It looks so blue. And then I turned around, and it was like there's this giant smoke column. Oh shit. So I went and grabbed my camera. Pretty cool to see, really horrifying to also see. Um, Only cool in the sense that, like, you're witnessing this event, but absolute devastation behind it. So after season one, most of, hot shots go and fight these fires. They do it for so many months, and they'll be transported to different areas. Like I said, they were in Northern California, they were sent to Oregon and Colorado, Arizona, a bunch of different places wherever they're needed. And the different levels of fire. Is it LP? LP5 is basically everything's on fire and we're screwed. And we essentially hit that every year recently at some point. After she showed that she belongs there, most of these hot shots, they take unemployment throughout the winter until they're ready. They train through all the winter. They come back, do it for another year. After fighting with her fiance, she came back for a second year. But this year, she's not the only woman. There is Addison, who joined her, is someone that she met in her first year who was on a different crew. She wasn't a hot shot. She was just, I can't remember, a wildland firefighter. But she joined a hot shot crew, and it was rough. Turns out, I don't know, I felt like she kind of had a princess complex to her, or like she would throw tantrums. It was definitely something, and Kelly had to balance the act that she's been fighting fires for a whole year with these people. She has a good bond with them now, and then here's an outsider that she vouched for and was kind of just blowing up and rubbing everybody the wrong way. And so, does she stick by her crew? Does she try to be the middleman between the two because she's the only other woman? Or does she pose before bros it? Like, she sticks by the other woman because they're both women, which isn't really fair if she sucks at her job. It's not exactly fair. So that was an extra layer of turmoil on top of the fact that she was falling for somebody on her crew, which, not ideal. He was falling for her too. And she essentially realized that the person she was engaged to he was controlling and manipulative, and she had to end it. So it turns out the guy that she ends up with ends up being that uh, fire jumper at the end. But I think year two was, she was used to it, but it was a whole different set of turmoil. I love that by the end of it, she couldn't return, which was a giant bummer for her. She ended up developing an autoimmune disorder and she just couldn't be a hotshot anymore. She never stopped loving it. Even she talks about how being out of it years later, they'll be driving down the coast to see a fire, and she's just glued in, like trying to figure out the direction it's going, what crews are going to be there, and how she's still in contact with a bunch of the people from the crew, which is really awesome after just 2 years, except Addison. She didn't seem to be continuing that friendship. Uh, it was neat. I think it's a very unique perspective to have instead of just looking at the news and watching these wildfires, how they impact communities that you're so totally out of touch with or ones that you are in touch with. But what it's like being on the front line. And by the way, like, they get the shit end of the stick. They're out there busting their ass, putting their lives literally on the line to save communities and save regions, and they get paid jack shit. Like, they start out at like $13. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then they're inhaling all these toxins from the fire. You got the fire retardant. There's shit that lights on fire. Like, in one instance, they were fighting a fire, and there was it an automotive, some sort of automotive thing, but it was a whole warehouse filled with tires, and the tires were burning, and that is some toxic shit to be able to inhale. And so they're all just like, she said, for days and days after that, some of them were feeling it in their lungs, and that's basically a precondition. One of the guys, the tree that fell on his head, insurance didn't want to cover it, which is insane because it's a hazard of the job or whatever. Obviously, it's a hazard. They're saving your ass. Give them money. Give them money. And then they have to fight for money for resources for things. Their trucks are breaking. They need new tools. They need more men out there, or women, or whoever, to go out there and fight the fires. It's just a really good perspective for people who aren't, really clued in on this. Like I said, I live in the Northwest, so this is a big thing to me. But the way that she talks about things is also really, really good. Just really easy to read. She's really good at explaining very niche concepts and acronyms. Oh, I'm so bad at acronyms. I'm so bad. But she's really great at it. I definitely recommend. I give it a 5 stars. 5 out of 5 stars. And I'm deep diving on more forestry stuff. It made me go watch the movie Only the Brave, about those hot shots that unfortunately got trapped and surrounded by fire. It was Colorado. Yeah, Colorado. And they all died, 19 of them. 19 out of 20 of a crew, which is really sad. I've watched the movie so many times. Like, I bought the movie, I got the digital, I got the physical, and I've watched it like 20, 30 times, and I cry every time. Anywho, also a great movie. If you have not seen it, Only the Brave. Really, really good movie. Um, like I said, it's definitely a good lesson on forest management and the grueling shit that they have to go through. And then how it's almost kind of thankless for them. But there's also this like absolute high that some of the people get where they just have to be there fighting the fires. It's fascinating. I could never do it. I would love to be part of it, like management, but I could never be out there doing it. So, anyway, very good book. If you have read it, I would love to know what you thought about it. If you haven't read it and it sounds interesting, I'd also like to know if you want to go pick it up. Happy reading. Please don't light us on fire. It is fire season. We've already started. Please don't be stupid.